Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Gaming with Calvin. Just kidding, that's not what it is.
Did you start that like completely by accident?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you did it on purpose.
No, I just finished it on purpose. I started on accident.
Oh, it happens. I would
Uh,
have just kept with it. It would have been like, nah, I'm joking. Like, here you go. This is actually
no,
bad.
fucking no. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Bastions and Basilisks. I almost screwed it up again. Which is funny, because I haven't done a Gaming with Calvin video in, like, months. Yeah, I'm Calvin.
I'm Brandon.
Yeah. This episode, we're going to talk about fighters. Which are a lot of fun.
I'll preface for everyone. I've never played a fighter. Like, I haven't even created one. So I'm literally going into this like just based off seeing other people play them. Like my friend who's only played gunslingers. And then obviously the gunslinger from Critical Role, season 1, fucking Percy. Like that's the amount of fighters I've actually ever seen.
Yeah, you're missing out. Fighters are beasts. They get D10 hit points. They get all armor proficiencies and shields. They get all weapon proficiencies. I mean, they should just say all. They get simple and martial, which
You
is
should be able to
better.
get improvised. I feel like improvised, like you'd be able to use them
Well,
at least better.
Everybody can use improvised.
I thought you had to have proficiency with improvised weapons.
No, everybody can do improvised.
I've always got told that you needed a
Much
proficiency.
much like everybody can just punchy punch.
That's fair.
It's just improvised weapons do it. I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong. They get no tool proficiencies right out the gate. They are proficient in strength and constitution saving throws. They can choose 2 skills from acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, history, insight, intimidation, perception, and survival.
Is animal handling just like a toss out there? Like, I feel like you can do more with that.
I think
Like,
that's because because of horses and
see, I didn't think about that.
cavalry.
Yeah,
Cavalry is a thing that so it's horse cavalry is a thing, and so
why not just give it proficiency in the cavalry state then? Like when you go that
I think
you
they
just,
do. I don't know. I think
it's just one of those
I just think they're just trying to give it to just kind of a broad stroke of things that they could do.
it makes sense. It was just confusing.
Right. Fighting style. You adopt a particular style of fighting as your specialty. Choose one of the following options. You can't take a fighter style option more than once, even if you later get a choose again. Only like 1 or 2. I think there might be a feat that gives you it, but or actually if you multi-class, into another class that gets like the combat fighting styles, like I think blood hunters get a fighting style.
Yeah, there's not many that get them.
Yeah, I think 3, because rangers get a fighting style. Maybe a paladins I think might get a fighting style. So I think, but yeah, it's if you multi-class into like ranger or blood hunter, you can't take archery 6 times or whatever.
Yeah, imagine that fucking stacking.
Archery.
So do you get to pick fighting styles multiple times? Like I've never.
There is one of the champion allows you to pick at level 10. You get to pick a second fighting style. So
See, I'm a fucking AC whore, so it's like I'm just gonna do whatever I can to up that AC. That's just me. I'd rather miss a lot than get hit a lot. That's how I view it.
Right. Archery, you gain a +2 bonus to attack rolls you make with ranged weapons. Defense, while you're wearing armor, you gain a +1 bonus to AC. Dueling, when you are wielding a melee weapon in one hand and no other weapons, you gain a +2 bonus to the damage rolls with that weapon.
Does that count with the shield? Because it says no other weapon.
Correct.
Oh shit, I didn't know that. Because I've always been like
And
like no shield.
Fists don't count as melee weapons either.
Ooh, so you can just punch a bitch in the face.
I mean, you can't technically. I don't know. There's rules for it, but if you're like if you dip into monk, I think there's a feat that allows you to do punchy punch.
Yeah, Tavern Brawler lets you do it with D4 if I'm correct.
Right. Maybe that's the thing I'm thinking of. That we're thinking of that.
Yeah, it's a D4 plus your strength mod instead of just strength mod.
No, I mean.
Ooh,
yeah.
protection.
You're proficient with. Oh, you are everybody. Yeah. Oh, I guess. Yeah. Tavern Brawler gives you proficiency in improvised weapons. It wouldn't make sense for them to be proficient in improvised weapons because they're not tavern fighters. Like they're not. They're trained in like actual weapons.
Yeah, not chair and table.
Yeah.
They're not proficient in the language of using a table against,
Right.
a random person.
Yeah, my blood hunter took dueling, so I had a whip
Ooh.
because I was like, I just want that reach.
No, that makes sense. You got a 10-foot reach with that. You can stay out of someone's way with that.
Right. Great weapon fighting, which is great. When you roll a 1 or 2 on damage die for an attack you make with a melee weapon that you are wielding with 2 hands, you can re-roll that die and must use the new roll, even if the new roll is 1 or 2. The weapon must have the 2-handed or versatile property for you to gain this benefit. That with Greatsword is just so badass.
I keep fucking that up because it's like, you get, I think, Great Weapon Master, which allows you to re-roll the attack rolls, if I'm correct.
No.
It's something it might be just Great Weapon Fighting that I'm thinking of, but it's like I keep messing it up and like I'll forget it exists. So I'll just keep rolling ones and twos.
That's the one that you can decrease your attack by like -5 and can do 10 additional damage.
Oh yeah, it does that. Like I forget I always mess up Great Weapon Fighting, and then Great Weapon Master does that. Yeah. And I think there's like Sharpshooter, which does -5 plus damage.
Sharpshooter's the ranged equivalent. Sharpshooter's such a broken feat.
I've seen it.
My brother used one. He was playing a monk, a Kensai monk, alternate tiefling who had wings in a pirate campaign, and so he just flew 600 feet in the air and was just shooting people with his bow.
Dude, that's disgusting.
So
did he have what is it? Fucking the thing to where you don't have disadvantages at any range.
That's Sharpshooter.
Is it Sharpshooter? Okay.
Yeah. Sharpshooter. So he was shooting things with his longbow at 600 feet. And the funny thing is the funny thing is look at, if you go through all of the spells, there are no spells that have a 600-foot range.
None.
Best you can hope for is a dimension door and then a cantrip. That like because I think D-door is a bonus action. So you D-door 500 feet and then use a cantrip to hit him and hope you hit. But he's a monk, so he's got a good armor class.
How me and my friends kind of handled it was,
but also if you're like, we have bows too, and so maybe you roll high enough, he's like, cool, snatch arrow.
Yeah, it's like
because he's a monk, and you're like, motherfucking son of a.
Imagine if you use deflect missile and just threw it right back at you.
Right? He's just like.
It's just like weak, just gone. Hits you in the foot, and you're like, it's that scene from Jim Carrey's, I think it's Ace Ventura, when he gets nailed in the knees.
No, he's nailed in the thigh with a spear. He's like, ooh, and then he gets nailed in, and he's like, ooh, yeah, I've seen the movie once or twice. Anyway, Great Weapon Fighting is so good with a great sword. It's like the only weapon that gets more than 1 die. So, I need sights back. Protection. When a creature you can see attacks a target other than you, that is within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage on the attack roll. You must be wielding a shield.
That's also really useful in my opinion.
It is. 2-weapon fighting. When you engage in 2-weapon fighting, you can add your ability modifier to the damage of the second attack, which is also a good ability. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's either that or, great weapon fighting. I mean, dueling is really good. It's because, if you're using a one-handed weapon anyway, because I think
you can use a longsword.
Longswords do D8, so you're able to do D8 plus 7 plus magic. So you're doing, and you get to swing a whole lot of times. So there's a lot of good choices. Second wind, you have a limited well of stamina that you can draw on to protect yourself from harm. On your turn, you can use a bonus action to regain hit points equal to a D10 plus your fighter level. Once you use this feature, you must finish a short or long rest before you can use it again. Once again, another thing that allows you that comes back with a short rest. And you'll notice that it says regain hit points. So once again, if you combine this, which my fighter did, I took the one of the feats from the Taldori guide that makes it so that you heal when you regain hit points, you regain an additional amount equal to your proficiency modifier. Ooh. So I was gaining a D10 plus my proficiency modifier plus my fighter level.
Ooh.
Which is another thing that it stacks with something that champion gets. Much like the regeneration that the Order of the Lycan gets. Action Surge. This is probably Second Wind is good. Action Surge in combination with extra attack makes fighters fucking nasty. Starting at second level, you can push yourself beyond your normal limits for a moment. On your turn, you can attack one additional action. You can take one additional... It's because my screen is dirty. You can take one additional action on top of your regular action and a possible bonus action. So for clarification, is you don't get to take another action and another bonus action. It's saying that on top of your normal action and bonus action, you can take another action.
Okay, so it's not like it's just the action.
You don't get effectively 2 turns.
Yeah.
Without a movement, that's a thing.
Basically, it's like you're good to make an attack and drink a potion if you decide to use potions as a action instead of a bonus action. Because I do.
Or use it as a dash action, there's so many things that you can use it as.
It's so
once you use this feature, you must finish a short rest or long rest before you can use it again. Starting at 17th level, you can use it twice before rest, but only once on the same turn. Fighters get to choose their martial archetype at level 3, which is champion. In this book, it's champion, battlemaster, and eldritch knight. Battlemaster's apparently the most badass, but I think it's the most boring. Eldritch Knight is pretty fun from what it looks like. I haven't gotten to play one. The champion is kind of just generic but solid. Ability score improvement. This is where fighters also really shine. When you reach 4th, and again at 6, 8, 12, 14, 16, and 19th level, you get an ability score improvement.
That's a lot. I think the rogue's like the only other one that gets
6, okay, so in older editions, in 3rd edition, fighters got feats every other level. So fighters were feeders. They're feeders. Because of feet. So they get a lot of feats. So I think that's kind of the way to make up for what they can do. Essentially, they can either boost their stats or get a couple more feats. Extra attack. Beginning at 5th level, you can attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action on your turn. The number of attacks increases to 3 when you reach 11th level and 4 when you reach 20th level.
Jesus, on top of action surge?
Yeah, so you can have a fighter. So that's and that's not even counting haste. So I think a fighter can attack, because I think haste only allows you to attack one time with an action.
Yeah, I think so. So
you can attack 9. So and that's assuming that you're not 2-weapon fighting, because if you're hasted and using 2 weapons, you can use your attack action to attack 9 times. You can attack action 4 times, action search 4 more times, and then use your hasted action to attack once more, and then stab them with your offhand.
So I have a question. Say you have a spell that gives you haste, and then someone casts haste on you again. Does that give you another one?
No, it doesn't stack. It doesn't stack.
Okay. Damn it.
Yeah.
That sucks. I really wish it.
So fighters can theoretically attack 10 times.
That's fucking brutal.
I like how they kind of prevent it from being abused, though, is you have to be 20th level to get the 4th attack. Because it could be nasty.
Imagine
you could almost make up for it going 11 levels of fighter and then monk. No, because you're essentially only getting those 2 attacks back with your offhand when you flurry of blows. Unless you go drunken master, who gets to attack with flurry of blows like up to 5 targets, but they all have to be different targets. Yeah. So you could get over. I think that would put you at 11. No, that'd be 12 because you get 3, 3, 1, and then 5. Yeah, so you'd be able to do 12 hits, which isn't a lot because at that point that's only offhand damage, and you're not.
You're still hitting stuff. It's DPS.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is you have to think about is failing Constitution saving. Every time you get hit and take damage, you have to make a con save. So if you fail that con save, so if you hit somebody, like that's why Magic Missile is useful, because you hit them 3 times. Each missile technically is separate damage.
Yeah.
So if they have force resistance, they get to shrug off half each of them. But they also have to roll a concentration save each time, which I kept reminding my friend, and I think he got pissed at me for it. He's like, yes, I know. I'm like, I'm just saying. I'm just keeping you honest. You know, you might forget. I'm just, you know. And then it's like I'm hiding. Like, you know, I'm just, you know, you might just, you know, I'm just saying, you know, in case you forgot, you know, whatever. Yeah, that's because fighters do one thing and they do one thing well. Like essentially,
They really hit.
they really hit. And then so the better part is that's turn one. You're like, boom, 10 swings. Turn two, boom, 10 swings. 6 rings. And then, you know, and then turn three, you're like, all right, I guess I'll only attack you 6 times or whatever. Like, so it's disgusting. That's why, like, barbarians can hit hard if they get crits, but they are mostly about getting hit. Whereas fighters, that's the critical thing is what kind of allows them to kind of catch up a little bit. Is I only get to attack twice, but there's a better chance that it's a critical hit. And then Indomitable, beginning at 9th level, you can reroll a saving throw that you fail. If you do so, you must use the new roll, and you can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest. You can use this feature twice between long rests, starting at 13th, and 3 times between long rests, starting at 17th.
That's impressive.
Yeah, so it allows you to reroll some saving throws, which is never a bad thing.
It's like being able to, what is it? Legendary resistance, kind of, but
pretty much, yeah. Except it's a roll
instead of automatic passing.
Yeah, but if you roll, yeah, it's so you roll shit. You're like, this is something I need to like. It can come in clutch where you're like, I need to survive this petrification. Like or it's one of those things that like you're a character. I mean, because you're a fighter, so you have a good strength and good con, and you're like you roll against petrification, but you roll poorly. You're like, I'm gonna roll again, or against poison. You're like, I'm gonna roll again because this is nuts.
Yeah, trust me, that's actually really good.
Like it's kind of like we were discussing the barbarians, like epic might thing where they get to use their strength as their strength score as their strength roll for like athletics checks, or strength checks, which isn't. It's situationally useful, so this is kind of the same thing. This is a little more clutch, but you know it could also not come in handy at all at the same time. Like you could never have to use it, which kind of sucks, but and that's it. Like I said, fighters do one specific thing. Like they fight. And then then when you get into the subclasses, which like we said, we'll go over that at some other later point. Probably once we finish the classes, then we'll just start going through each of the subclasses.
Yeah.
Because they have some good ones. I think that's actually what wanted me to make these videos is watching like the Dungeon Dudes bitch about like fighter subclasses. And I'm like, well, they were talking shit about like the Dragon Knight, like the Purple Dragon Knight, and they're like, it's garbage. And I'm like, fuck you, it's garbage. Like, just because it's not like supremely fucking useful all the goddamn time. But like, yeah, we've discussed this in a video. If she watched my videos,
called out.
Yeah.
I do too, jackass.
Well, in the essentially, it's like, you know, because they have the thing where when they use their healing, their second wind, they can heal up to 3 allies within 60 feet or 30 feet. And it's like, everybody but the fighter's still standing. Or everybody but the fighter is knocked down. Cool. I use my second wind. I heal a little bit. Everybody heals. Everybody get the fuck back up. Really like, so.
That's really useful, mainly when, like, even if it's not a lot of health, you're able to get up, heal yourself, or get healed by someone else and, like, run or something like that. You got opportunities.
And then their action surge thing is when they use their action surge, they can allow, at earlier levels, 1 ally to make an attack using their reaction, or at level 17, they can make 2. So we discussed this: 2 rogue assassins and a fighter in a surprise round, allowing the rogues to attack 2 times with sneak attack each in a surprise round. Goodbye, whatever you were.
You just die.
I mean, yeah, but like I said, we'll go over this at some point. Fighters, like, there's not a lot to them. They're not as, you know, intricate or whatever as artificers. They don't have, but it's, I mean, there's also the fact that you can decide what your fight, like, I mean, it's also with taking your fighting style, you can also base, like, kind of similar to what monks do, you know, where it's their monastic order, and so it's where they learned their style. or whatever. Like, you can do the same thing, that you belong to a fighter group that, predominantly uses shields, or whatever, or sword and board, or these two weapons, or they're a dueling style, or, there are a lot of, they're not just, it's kind of they don't have as much ingrained in their class specific to boosting their roleplay capabilities as some classes do. But they are still they still have something, because you're like, okay, why would you pick a dueling? I'll throw this to you, Brandon. Why is your character, why do you have the dueling fighting style? Why does your fighter, what school did you belong to, where you trained, or you don't even have to have gone to a school. Why was your training in such a way that you decided to go the dueling route in character creation? Like, backstory wise, why?
Yeah, that's why I was in my campaign. I told them, like, when you're picking, because I like my characters and the people I play with start off with defeat, and when you're playing as human, you get another one on top of it.
I hate humans.
So that's what I like to do, and I've had it where my DMs would like let us do a combat feat and a non-combat feat, so like something like linguist or something like that. And usually we're like, oh, let's like go about it to where we get like a lot of proficiency or something like that. But I started putting it towards like, hey, look, you get one feat, but make it make sense to your character. It's like I want to see how you come up with including all of these things to grow your character and build them into a full-fledged thing, instead of, oh, I have character A and it's like, I'm just here, it's like, okay, roll damage, whatever, and they go to the next campaign that they're probably playing also, and it's like, oh, I have this character, like I want them to be immersed in this campaign. So that's why I enjoy that question, because it's like, why did you go into this?
No, I was legit asking you that question. Come up with on the spot why you chose dueling. I mean, she can answer if she wants to.
So basically, it could be, instead of going the backwards route where both my parents are dead, which is stupid, you could be like, well, my father did this style of fighting and my mother did this style of fighting, and I learned from both of them. That's how you ended up with the dual action of two different fighting styles.
So dueling, I had to reread it to make sure, because I was thinking of the two weapon fighting. For dueling, I could say that my character was interested in fencing. He was a fencer, so he's has the arm behind his back. And eventually he, like, I know back in the day, at least for, I'm thinking of when I was playing Lego stories or whatever the fuck it is, there's like multiple different variants, and there's a pirate one that you could play as. And for the good guys, the main character walked around and he fought with one hand behind his back as a fencer. And, it's a very weird, like, coincidence of bringing this up, but, as a character, you can say, oh, I was always interested in fencing as a character, so I got used to fighting with one hand weapons, and eventually he honed his skills and possibly got teachings from like someone who knew better than him. And it kind of depends on how you want to like run the story of yourself, and your DM runs it, but you can do a whole lot of stuff with that. And then eventually, you could use a buckler or some sort of shield, because it says no weapon. You can eventually, where he's able to parry with his shield and such. So how I would run it is that he didn't know how to use a shield at all. Like, he was just not very good at doing that until he got taught by someone better to use that shield to his advantage to parry and such. Even though, like I stated earlier, like I'm kind of a AC whore, I'd rather, in this circumstance, go into it as if, hey, this makes sense. Like, my character got used to doing such things with dueling. He used one hand because he wasn't good with two hands. He just wasn't able to swing and maintain concentration. All he was thinking about was the swing, not where is it going to land and all that jazz, like the force behind it. But when he got the one hand, he was more focused on getting into those like points in your body, like saying get underneath the shoulder blade, stabbing in between, and dislocating or severing an artery that was there or something like that. He got more precise with his attacks, and then he got more defensive with his other hand, not worrying about, the strength aspect, but defending and piercing type of thing. That's I guess an example of how I could go along with that.
And then playing off of that is that you, maybe because of that, you were also always interested in dueling, that now you're out searching for other dueling. Maybe you want to be the best. Maybe you're like Roronoa Zoro, where you want to be the best dueler. So you're
The
trying
best swordsman in existence.
yeah,
I'm trying to
but
think of-
specifically dueling, because it's like, you know, somebody, you're like, you want to duel, and somebody's like, sure, they pull out a great sword, you're like, no, I mean duel, like, you know, and then
Yeah.
that's a great character thing, because now you have something to draw on. You're like, something
That's your
that motivates you to be out adventuring, just not like, oh, because some rats attacked my farm, and my mom got bit, and now she has tetanus.
He's a were-rat.
Or something from getting bit by a were-chihuahua, or whatever. But I mean, that could be a thing. Is maybe because as a fighter you have all of the weapon proficiencies, but it could be like almost like a challenge run. Like if you're playing like Dark Souls or Bloodborne, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna use the whip cane, which is like super hard to use and beat the like. You're like, fuck it, I'm just gonna. You're like, I picked up everything really quickly, and it just the dueling style seems like the most aggressive and least defensive. So it's almost a challenge to use. Like, can I challenge myself to be a successful fighter while only using a rapier? And maybe at that point you're like that, and that could be a character choice where you're like, no shields, only eyes. No wait, and you're like, no shields. I only use the rapier. But then at that point, I would work it into something that'd be like, all right, you don't want to, because a lot of duelists also have like the sword breaker, and in 3rd edition they had like a parrying dagger. So I'd be like, okay, you can have in your offhand, instead of a shield, you can have a parrying dagger, which is 100% defensive. You can't stab with it.
Yeah.
But it gives you the bonus to your AC as if you were using a shield. And it's just thematically, it's like a transmogrification of a shield into a dagger, essentially. So but, you know, and that's, you're like, you always, when you're like, fuck it, like, you're like, come here, giant, I'm gonna you to death. Like,
Getting
you know,
like right the kneecapped.
You know, maybe you're like, I want to see what I'm able to defeat with only a rapier or my dueling style. So that's just from dueling. You know, archery, you're like, I mean, archery could be similar, great weapon fighting, like everything. Why are you protection? Because, you know, maybe you want to, you know, you're big and beefy, but you know that not everybody else is, so you want to protect people, or
you could say like you're not the healthiest person with defensive whatever the fuck it is, the one where it gives you the +1 AC. It's like I'm physically weaker and stuff like that, so I try to make up for my lack of, you know, outside hardiness by making it harder to damage me. So it's like, yeah, like I'm not as much of a worry. Like my AC, say it's like 16, but you know, there's someone else with a 14. You can worry about healing them more so than, you know, my character. Right. It's like I got this chainmail shirt on because I can get hurt, but it's going to take longer to wear me down.
With the defense, you can even say like maybe you were kind of a sickly child, and so you decided to like do like weight training, and so you were able to get some kind of armor that maybe you build like this ramshackle armor, like weighted, like, you know, like weighted vests and whatnot, so that you could get yourself stronger, and you wore it all the time. And because you wore, you know, even weird armor all the time, and then eventually got to functional armor, you are, you know how to use the armor effectively. You know it's not in your way. You know how to move in such a way that you know, kind of like how tanks were designed with the angled plating, so that you know, increasing, same kind of concept, where you know how to take a shot in your armor.
It deflects off more.
So it's, you know, so you're adjusting the angles because of all of the time you spent in armor, more than other people or other fighters who, you know, they wear it when they need to and then take it off. Like, that's a thing where if you went defense, I would give you the thing where you don't get the exhaustion. Like, that's, you know, it's one of those things. Like, if somebody can argue validly why they can have something, be like, I take defense, and this is my reasoning for my character to take defense, was I trained in the armor all of the time, so I'm really good at armor. I would like it to be so that when I'm taking a long rest, I can still wear even my full plate and not get the like exhaustion from, I still get a long rest while wearing full plate because of how much time I have spent in armor. And I'd be like, you know what? Fair. That is a valid point. It's not super game breaking. I mean, you're probably gonna get ambushed at night, and it's gonna come in helpful. But it's not something that, it's not, you know, end of the world type of thing. It's not like, oh, that's gonna come in clutch because the big bad evil guy is going to attack you in the middle of the night, and thank God your fighter is wearing his full plate, type of thing. So
That's sad. Like bringing that up, it's like something that I never fully cared about either. It's like taking off your armor. It's like I don't, as much as it makes sense in a real life standpoint. When you're out and about, I kind of feel like your characters would probably get very used to having their armor being slept in. They're like, yeah, I found out how to be comfortable in my armor to a degree. So they're sleeping because it's like kind of like military things. Like, people get used to sleeping in their camis. I've seen, like, I know plenty of Marines who slept in their boots, which for me, I couldn't do, but I've slept in my boots a couple times and I eventually got used to it. It's, you kind of learn how to get over things for multiple months, days, weeks, depending on how fast you learn. And, there's certain things that you obviously can't do it with. Like, I don't think you should be able to sleep comfortably in plate mail, but, like you said, with.
Well, that's why if you're wearing light armor, you can sleep in light armor, no problem. I think it's only medium and heavy armor that you start getting the negatives.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, because now you're wearing bigger and bulkier armor.
I was just thinking about it, but for like the backstory for why you're dueling, say your fighter lost an arm and now he has like.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah, like you either have one arm, which is a nice thing as long as you're being respectful and not using it as a bullshit thing. But
right.
maybe you just want or maybe you have a prosthetic arm so it's not as functional yet, and you want to get you're trying to get a functional arm, which is you're out there, you're like, I heard about this artificer that makes really functional arms. So maybe you have like a wooden arm, kind of like Sekiro, where it's mostly functional. I guess it's still somewhat magical in nature because they don't usually do things without something. But yeah, like it's stuff like that. That's why I went like the sickly route. Like you're sickly, and that's why you overtrained yourself in armor, and that's why you get the defense. Like it could be you overcoming something, and that's why you're so good at that specific thing. So
well, like piggybacking off the fencing thing, say the guy, your character was proficient in fencing but lost the arm that he wasn't using, but decided to go to say like an artificer or something of that nature and had a prosthetic made that could be a mace or a whip or a crossbow, that he could become proficient in that as well as the fencing.
Well, it's funny because that's actually that's not exactly the thing, but in the podcast game that I'm in, are the Tel de Room, which are they're similar to Warforged because they're constructs but different. He essentially had it so his character, all of them that were crafted to serve a purpose. So he was like blacksmith, like he was built to forge things on the assembly line type of thing. And so he has hands, but he like transformers them. They come out and they go in, and he has a hammer and a tongs. So like it could be the same thing that you have a hand, but then your offhand could turn into another weapon, type of thing. So it's
kind of like the cyborg from Treasure Planet, where his arm could just become whatever he needed at that point in time,
right.
Or you could interchange it like the blacksmith from How to Train Your Dragon.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There's thoughts. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I'll go back to my book.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
No, I was just looking out because like I zoned out.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like everything. There is always something that you can draw from. That's what pisses me off about that's we'll get to it when we talk about fucking warlocks. But people are like, oh, warlocks are great. They have a built-in backstory generator. I'm like, every class does. If you're not incompetent.
Yeah, if you want to add something like, dude, blood hunters, it literally is written into them like that.
Blood hunters. If we're arguing, blood hunters have the best. Fuck
it's
warlocks.
It's like, dude, it literally says in the history you experienced something dark and devastating in your life that made you hate whatever your like thing is, and like that's one of the best things. Like a warlock can be like, yeah, I'll just dabble in the dark arts for no fucking reason. Like you don't need to do it because
warlocks are just lazy wizards.
Yeah.
Or even just rangers too, because you have a favorite enemy. Why is that your favorite enemy? Like it's every class has a reason. Like, and we just thought of one. We thought of two different styles
Exactly.
Of reasons why. I mean, archery's pretty simple. Like, you just maybe you grew up in the wilderness, and so you
I've always
just
really
you became a
enjoyed
good
the
hunter.
I've always really enjoyed the idea of like spellcasters always wanting to become liches. Like that's like because I've never done it myself, so I've really wanted to play a spellcaster that has the ability to become a lich and work towards that goal where they can become more of a benevolent lich, which I know like or lich. I know that fifth editions kind of went away with the good liches. There's a couple
Yeah, in
references.
third edition there was good aligned liches.
Yeah, like that's what I want to do is like since
Because
fifth edition
as part of the crafting of your phylactery and what you need to do, you need to
evil.
kill, like, you have to sacrifice souls to maintain your own. So you have to kill people, which destroying a soul is like in the Forgotten Realms is like the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, but like I can still find ways to make sure it's like good aligned ish. Like yeah, like people who are on the edge of their deathbed, they voluntarily send their souls
Right.
out or something, or they're like, hey, these people are really bad people, like murderers and stuff. It's like okay, well they murdered someone for no reason. Fuck it,
Right, or um, you could like druids. You could justify, because you're draining a life, like decay, like especially if you're a circle of spores. You know that there's the balance of life and death, and kind of death feeds life, and life feeds it becomes
kind of like a
death.
morning Canaan, because morning Canaan's that thing of all about balance. I can see. If I'm correct, that's morning.
Yes,
Canaan.
Morning Canaan is a punk ass bitch, is what he is.
I don't know much based off of morning Canaan. All I know is that he's like
Yeah.
apparently all about balance and shit.
Yeah, and you can run into him in Descent into Avernus.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Now I really want to see that.
Yeah, he's useless. But yeah, there's always something. Like I said, fighters are very straightforward. Like you don't become a fighter because you want to craft the biggest thing. Although you can, because you have a background and you can gain tool proficiencies from your background, and so there's no reason saying that. But maybe you're like Masamune, or the Masamune blade, or I'm trying the guy who created the legendary katana. Essentially, like maybe you want to learn how to maybe you know how to fight with stuff, but you want to maybe gather all of like get a collection of legendary weapons or
the only way to get that is by earning them or some shit.
Yeah, exactly. You have to
Like
fight.
at least your character wants to earn them.
Yeah, you have to, like, you're out there, you're trying to collect all of the legendary swords or all of the legendary armor. Like there's so many things that you could do, and you're like, I know how to use all of them, so or maybe you're like, you understand that once again in the backstory is something happened. Maybe I don't like it. I don't like that everything has to be tragedy in a backstory. I don't think it's necessary. But sometimes it is a great motivator. So,
it makes it easier for having no family ties to go out and adventure.
Well, not even that. Like it's you could have a family. It's just you went and you trained with a master, and you went to like a fighter school, and maybe like I had a monk who he trained at a monastic order and found out that the leader was essentially trying to do something. He was trying to summon a kraken, and so because it was called the Order of the Kraken, so he's trying to trying to gain control and like manipulate a kraken, and instead he drew the attention of a dragon turtle. So the dragon turtle actually destroyed. Like while my character was confronting his master about like he knew that he was doing like dabbling in dangerous things, like I've been paying attention and I noticed you're dabbling in dangerous things, that's going to cause ruin to us. And that like essentially he beat the shit out of me, but the only reason I survived is because a dragon turtle attacked the monastery because of all of the congregation of like magical items that he had gotten. And so like it was a whole thing, and I just escaped with a cart and traveled, because this was the underwater game, so I just grabbed a cart and just this is my lobster going run away. So yeah, not like my wizard, both his parents are alive. His mom's a warlock who made a pact with his undead warlock because my character that I played in my brother's 3rd edition game was trapped in Ravenloft for a while, eventually was able to make his way back, had a daughter, I guess, like, and so my red wizard that I was playing in my brother's newer game is the grandson of my older character. Like, it's just, which is great. So, yeah, but the whole dead parents or death which I think Liam was the one who's like, people like you have to have some kind of tragedy to want to leave home. Like that's not true. Like, have you lived on a I mean, I've never lived on a farm, but like, I'd be like, this is boring as shit. I don't want to fucking be here. Like even why are there there are so many stories of people getting bored on farms or doing what they're doing and they just leave. They're like, fuck it, we're going. So, exactly. Like, so you don't need a tragic backstory. Like,
it's a good motivator.
You just ran away. You just ran away. And you're like, fuck it. You just got to the next town. Maybe you took your dad's weapons or something. Because maybe your dad used to be a fighter. And so you took his... I mean, I even love the idea that it's fucking Harley specifically. Is that she's like... or actually like Mulan. She took her dad's armor and weapon.
We just said Mulan bit.
Yeah, she literally just said Mulan.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you took your dad's weapon and armor, and you not even joined the military if you don't want. Like, you're just like, fuck it. I know he has it. Or he has other weapons. This is just like the old stuff. That his first set of armor, and which justifies you having your armor or whatever. And you're like, I'm going, and so you just leave. And, then you have something to go back to, like maybe, you gain a couple levels, you save a kingdom and you return back. You're like, look what I've done. I'm not done. I'm going back out. But, like, look, this kingdom could not have, like, not necessarily couldn't have been saved, but I helped. I'm making a difference in the world. And, and then that's a great role-playing thing. Because maybe at some point your dad... Maybe he calls in some of his former adventuring buddies, and they come hunt you, like, not hunt you down to kill you, but hunt you down to bring you home. Like, look, I just accidentally came up with a great fucking character backstory. Like...
And you came up with, like, a whole character archetype and, like...
Exactly.
A whole fucking storyline with it.
That's how good I am. So... But yeah. And all of this is specific to Fighter. And that's just one that I just randomly came up with. Like... There's so much, and that doesn't involve any tragedy, theoretically. So you can be tragic where your parents got wiped out, like Goblin Slayer, or not. So tragedy is easy because then you don't have any backstory, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, my family was murdered," so now you have nothing to hold against me, because Grognar DMs are douchebags.
I've always liked the backstory of I'm gonna go off and make my own way and make you proud of me.
Right.
Like that's like a majority of my backstories for different characters that I have. Like they're ready to go off on their own and do their own thing.
I just turned 13 and I'm joining the military now.
Like it's like the Ash Ketchum. Like I'm gonna go off on my own. Bye.
Here's a Pokedex.
Right. So I mean, everything has a valid reason. Like so, it's if you're playing just a boring fighter, fine. But if you're playing a fighter who wants more out of things, also fine. There's a whole thing. Exactly. Actually, I commented on somebody's... It's like the players that... Oh, it's... people complain because they don't feel like their... like their characters aren't as cool as the Critical Role. I hate that everybody brings up Critical Role. Like, Dimension 20 doesn't fucking exist.
I've never watched it.
I know.
I like Harmon Quest more than Critical Role.
Dimension 20 is the best.
I think it's just because Critical Role just like kind of pioneered it, and then Dimension 20 is definitely like the second one that I've always heard. Like I don't hear many other ones. Like it's just the.
There's one that is actually an all POC crew. Something of Waterdeep. So I don't remember the name of it. I can look it up after. But that is an all person POC group, run by and like. As far as I know, everybody who plays in the game and runs the game is a person of color, and possibly everybody that's behind the screen or behind the camera, is also like. So if it's one of those, if you're trying to support other people, and they're on their 11th season.
Oh shit!
Like they I mean, so I mean, no, I don't think that they're not as long as the campaigns of like Matt's campaigns were. Like 130 fucking episodes or whatever per season, but
yeah,
they're still going strong though. So, but yeah, it's everybody wants to have a cool character like Liam or like Travis. It's like have a backstory like Liam, be a hype beast like Travis, like be an entertaining or like not even entertaining, but be the character. And I'm like, that's what I do. I'm not playing a character. I'm not playing Chip's Tooth on Chainmail. I am Chip's Tooth on Chainmail for that 2.5 hours that we have that session every week. I am Chip's Tooth on Chainmail, or I am Lucian Rideau, my fucking Hercules Beetle Artificer, or I am Perinello, my Cleric of Mask, who is now trying to create a guild in Ravnica. Like, I am that character. And then that will make you enjoy it more, and then that'll make your GM enjoy it more because you are invested in the game. You're not You're not there to show up, kill some shit, and then deuces. You leave. Like,
yeah, you that's why I enjoyed playing D&D, is that like I would eventually slip into the mindset of my character, and then like I really wanted to go back to play because it's like I enjoyed being able to forget the real life and just be immersed in the game. Mm-hmm. Like, I've never had an issue of not feeling adequate in my world, because like I never compared my characters to Critical Role. Like, is my goal of doing YouTube to ever get that big? I know I'm not, but it'd be really nice.
Not with that mentality, you weren't.
Well, I'm also realistic. I know I'm not going to be like that level of stuff, but if I could be,
I think there's. I know I'm interrupting you, but there's a middle ground. You could understand that you would probably never get that successful, but there's no reason not to be like, fuck it, that's the goal.
It's my goal.
Create an unachievable goal, because then at least that's all. Like, shoot for the moon. If worst case you land in the stars or some shit. Like, but
like my goal is to be known in the D&D community at least. Like, so it's like, yeah, like this guy's like really good stuff, and like I've actually had it to where people are actually like referring their new like beginners to my videos. It's like, yeah, like this guy's like, here's the bullet points of what is needed. He's has some experience with it. Here's like a deep dive into it where like it's his own personal experience, rather than let's like someone who doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. It's just like, yeah, like this is how like it is, and it's very cut and dry. Like AJ Pickett is really good in the YouTube space dealing with it, and it's someone that I send people to whenever I talk about D&D that ask questions like, what is a good thing? Like, even with my friend Ed, who's very knowledgeable, if I have a question about something, I go to AJ Pickett because he has a lot of resources dealing with stuff. It's where I found out that Eladrin don't necessarily die of old age. So I was just like, hell yeah, like my Eladrin could be 30,000 years old if I fucking wanted to. Like,
it's rude
stuff
now
like
that you don't just ask me. Like, I don't know everything. No, I'm just kidding.
Before.
Just kidding.
With the immersion in it, when I was playing Rena Slate, my rock gnome that had dwarfism, she was like a foot tall. She had a Saint Bernard mount, and when that dog died, I cried IRL because I love that dog so much.
Exactly. Like it's like reading One Piece.
Reading One Piece, that's fair.
Have you read One Piece or watched One Piece?
Not fully. When I started reading One Piece, because I had the first 3 volumes, mm-hmm. and then I never got to finish it, but like I would reread the first 3 volumes, and it's just like, this is back when I was in middle school. Like, I loved reading manga in general, and I always got invested in reading manga. So I always want to continue that, and like I get real invested into watching and binging anime, and it's just like, and then I start envisioning my life inside of the anime and shit. It's just like, fuck. And I still do this, like, with shows that I watch.
But in One Piece, you become so invested in the characters and in even their ship that at some point the ship is beyond repair. They go to Island 7, and then some shit happens, and then they have to go to like the world government, and they essentially attack the world government. And this huge fight breaks out. Luffy gets probably his ass kicked the most that he's ever gotten it up to that point. And they're like pretty much surrounded by all of these massive ships. And then out of nowhere, the Going Merry shows up. Their tiny little ship. I think it's like a Cavalier or something like it. It's not a huge ship. It shows up on its own.
Oh shit.
Because they loved this ship so much that it literally came alive. It shows up, they all like launch themselves onto the ship, and they escape. Somehow dodging these fucking warships in their tiny ass, broke as fuck ship. And at some point, they meet up with some people, and they are able to kind of meet up, and that's when the Going Merry cracks in half. because it literally could not be repaired. It had taken too much damage before getting to Island 7. I think it's Island 7. And so, like, they have, like, a Viking funeral for the ship. And it's... I'm going to cry because essentially the ship is like, thank you. You gave me the best life. I went on amazing adventures with you. And I will never... Like, I was the best life. And I was like... Like, you watch it and you see everybody crying. Like, even Zorro is fucking crying. And you're like, dude, stoic as fuck. And he's like... Like...
Did you rip his eye out in, like, later episodes? Like, that's why he has one eye?
I don't know. He lost it theoretically during training, but I don't think he did. I don't know. I thought that I was like he just is hampering himself. Like he just injured and he has like the Kakashi eye or something that it's just some
like he can open it. He just is like it gives
I don't know. I saw something recently. Anyway, I don't want to get into that, but
yeah,
same thing. Like you invest like your ship, like in a game your ship is your ship. Somebody attacks your ship and you're like, oh hell no. Like,
it's the meme, and I took that personally.
And right, like we were playing this last week. My cleric was getting his shit rocked, and then somebody dropped our bard, and I was like I don't care. I was like, Paradel, they fucked with our bard, and like we just like we lost it. It's like it's funny that like, he's like I'm getting eaten by fucking land sharks, and I'm like you motherfuckers, stop it. And like they drop our bird and I'm like no motherfucker, not cool, like type of thing, like that like supreme loyalty type of thing. So it's I
have the same thing with getting animals in my game. Like I always try to get an animal. In my last game that I played, I got a pseudo dragon, and like anytime I had off, I was just specifically playing with my pseudo dragon, and it got to the point where like my pseudo dragon was attacking a beholder that my friend like ended up upgrading and stuff, and like the beholder almost like attacked the pseudo dragon, which we know it's like 7 hit points. Like it's gonna die if it gets like targeted. And my character, like I asked my friend, like I asked the DM, which was Ed, I was like, can I throw myself in front of the pseudo dragon? Like I would rather die than the pseudo dragon die.
Right.
Because I spent like probably like 2 months in game doing this, but it's like in real life I've been playing this like maybe a month, and I was like, I'm invested in the pseudo dragon. And he's like, roll an athletics check. And I took almost instant kill damage just to like make sure it was like alive. Right. I was like, it's like Ash Ketchum protecting people.
You get that is the best part is when you're invested. I mean, we've gone way the fuck off topic now and wasted 10 minutes. But that is the best part of this of role playing games in general. It's not specifically D&D. It's just you become so invested that somebody knocking your bard, your fucking parrot Kenku bard unconscious, and you go ape shit, and you're a cleric of mask, and your twin sister is a fucking rogue sorcerer of mask who doesn't give a fuck, but you're like, and I took that personally. Like you're like, no, he's one of us, like he's a part of our crew. So, and also we crashed somebody else's ship. I realized that we have a ship called the Hindenburg, and we got plane shifted in somebody else's ship and crashed that ship into the ocean. So we have the Hindenburg, and we crashed somebody else's ship. which is hilarious to me.
It's the sibling mentality of I can make fun of my siblings, but God.
Right, exactly. It's that, they're family. Like, yeah, I can make fun of my family, but you can't, like, type of thing. And so, like, that's one of those things. I mean, I'm playing less beefy of a character, but it's more impressive, like, if you're, we're going to tie it back. If you're a fighter and you have the power and damage potential to back it up, it's a lot more impressive. Once again, tying back to I'll tie back to One Piece, when Usopp stood up to Luffy because they were gonna because he's like, the ship's irreparable. Like we have to get a new ship. We have to figure some shit out. And Usopp was like, no, this is our fucking ship. I'm not leaving it behind. And so they got into a fight, and he knew he was not going to beat Luffy in that fight. Like, it's very much that, like, Thanos versus Iron Man thing. Like, you just have to make him bleed type of thing. Like, he's like, I know I'm going to get my shit wrecked, but I'm still going to do it. Like, I'm still fighting. Like, it's a whole thing.
What happened after Toby the St. Bernard got, deaded is my character took every bomb that she had made and set them off. I wiped out 12 shadow hounds and most of the party because Toby got...
Right. And that's one of those situations where, see, that is what my character would do. That is something that your character is so committed to this creature that in your grief, you don't think clearly, and you make a rash decision, and it's very bad. But like, I would be like, fuck. Like, I mean, I would be pissed at you as a player, just because I am always invested in all of my characters. So if my character dies, I'm like, fuck you. But like, I would get it. Like, I'd be like, I'm not saying I wouldn't do the same thing, because I usually am I compartmentalize like a boss. But like, I'm not like, I've had characters like be like, no, fuck it. I'm the last, like, I'm gonna stand here and just be the one person fucking the Cuchulainn, or there's a like Viking, or there's so many times there's been that lone knight standing on a bridge. It's like, let's fucking do this. Like, I'm gonna hold this line for as long as I fucking can. You guys go, type of thing. Like the noble sacrifice type of thing. And
off with the hobbits.
But you're like, fuck it. Like, you're like fuck it, and you're like torch, light him up, give me a hug, motherfucker. Like,
everyone in the campaign knew that Raina was a little trigger happy, but she was a dwarf. She had dwarfism as a rock gnome. She was a foot tall.
Punter. Oh. You guys still there? Uh-oh. You might have lost power. So do I. Alright. Well, I don't know what happened to their stuff. So I'm going to end this. Thanks for watching. Bye. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. And now you get to listen to the outro song. And that's the outro song. Yeah.